Hi, everyone. Today, Truckstop is hosting a webinar with our Platinum Marketplace partner, American Truck Business Service. We have Truckstop's Chief Relationship Officer, Brent Hutto, and American Truck Business Services CEO, Todd on today's call. They're going to help you get set for success in the new year. They'll be educating us today on filing your taxes and running your business successfully in 2023. Brent and Todd, take it away.
Well, thanks a lot, Brett. I appreciate it. And well, I'm really excited today to be on this webinar with my good friend and somebody I admire really much inside of the transportation marketplace, Todd Amon. Todd and I've had the, I guess, luxury, you could say, of being friends with him since 1999 when I got to be a part of something really unique with Overdrive Magazine. My history is I've been in the marketplace for about a little more than 2 decades. And I previously worked with Overdrive Magazine before coming to work for Truckstop. And that's how I met Todd, through the Partners in Business Education program, where it was his goal and our goal as two businesses to really help the owner operator achieve their dream, which is to run their own business and be successful at it. And I did everything I could do at that time working for Overdrive. And now we're trying to do everything we can at Truckstop to do the same thing. And so just really had a wonderful friendship and business relationship with Todd for these past several decades. So it's been a lot of fun.
Hey, Brent. Yeah, gosh, we could sit here and blow smoke at each other, and most people might think that's what we're doing. But to be honest, it's sincere and true. We've been friends mostly because we do more than just business. We care about what we do. We have passion for our clients, which are the owner operator drivers, and we want the best for them and we want them to succeed. And you and I have always built our relationship around honesty and truth and doing the right thing for our drivers. And so that's a lot of friendships and business relationships don't last 2 decades, but ours has, because you and I are about doing the right thing. And that's really our goal today, right? The things we talk about is just helping drivers to make the most of their life and their business.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I appreciate you saying that, man. Yeah, that's it's all about where your goal, where your heart is on something. And so just really appreciate this topic today and ATBS being a part of what we're doing at Truckstop to communicate to the owner operator to help them run the most successful business they can. And so, Todd, it's that time of the year. We just closed out 1 year. 2022 is gone in history, and now we're going into the next year, into 2023, and that means you got to make sure you've closed out 2022 really, really well. And being prepared is everything when it comes to being successful long term. And understanding the changes in the tax code are super important. So what are some of the changes that are going to face them going into 2023?
It's a great question. Taxes, is a dirty word for most people. It's just something that we like to deal with because it costs us money if we're in business for ourselves. It costs us money even if we're employees. But I guess what I would say is the tax code is complicated, and it's even more so for those people that are self-employed. And sometimes we go year to year and there aren't a lot of changes, and then sometimes there are significant changes. I could go back to 2018 when Donald Trump passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and the whole premise that they talked about was that this was going to simplify taxes for everybody. But at the end of the day, it was 1,400 pages of law that changed taxes significantly. So we haven't experienced that, but what we have in the last couple of years is experienced some really significant stimulus, I guess I would say, because of the COVID years. The government's tried to put money into the economy and help specific people to keep our economy going during the COVID years. And so a lot of that's coming to the end, right? COVID's not over, but the stimulus that took place during that. So some things that are changing. One thing that the government did a couple of years ago was restaurants were suffering, right? Nobody went out to eat because of COVID. And so they made meal deductions for businesses 100% deductible. They used to be 50% deductible. Starting, 2 days ago, January 1st, we go back to 50% deductions. If you went out and had lunch for business, that's now 50% deductible. So I'm going to relate that to per diem for truck drivers, which is really the meal expense for truck drivers, independent contractors. That deduction was only 80% deductible prior to COVID. Because of COVID, and we went specifically to the IRS because they did not state that deduction for owner operators goes to 100% like it did for regular business people, but they did. After we discussed it with them, they made that a 100% deduction. So for the last 2 years, you've been able to deduct 100% of your per diem deduction. Unfortunately, January 1st of this year, that goes back to 80%. It's a confusing thing. Per diem is confusing for so many people. We could spend a lot of time talking about it, but main thing to know is that that per diem deduction goes back to 80%. Depreciation, the government changed a lot of depreciation rules over the last couple of years because they wanted us to buy things. So especially if you're in business, they wanted you to buy trucks, trailers, APUs, computers, because that spurned the economy and it got us out of, COVID economic downturn. So some of those depreciation rules are changing. Very complicated, so I'm not going to go into details, but make sure your CPA is paying attention to those changes. Some things, again, to get money into the economy was they gave us credits on our tax returns, child tax credits. So if I have children, they changed that credit against, if I owe 10 grand in taxes, they allowed me, if I had a child that was under 6 years old, I could take up to a $3,600 credit. If I had children under 18, I could take a $3,000 credit. That goes away and goes back to what it was a couple of years ago. It goes down to $2,000. So the bottom line, I guess, is that your taxes are likely to go up this year. Don't blame your tax preparer. It's just a lot of those things that they did to spur the economy over the last couple of years have expired. We're going back to normal times. One last thing I'll leave you with is, as independent contractors, the government wants more clarity into your business, and this goes into people that are gig workers like Uber drivers and those kinds of folks. And so traditionally, it's been required that you get a 1099 if you generate over $24,000 worth of income with any entity. So if you haul for a broker more than $24,000 worth a year, they had to give you a 1099. That's changing and it's going down, and it was supposed to change this year. It's going to go down to $600 because they really want to capture all that revenue. And unfortunately, the IRS, their systems aren't able to capture that data, so they've delayed the implementation of that until 2024. But it's important to know that your income is going to be reported to the IRS over $600, not over $20,000. So again, man, the tax code's complicated. There's a lot of changes always. And those are just a few of the things that are going to be changing as we head into this new year.
Wow, goodness, they better keep your eyes open when it comes to the tax code, especially when it relates to trucking and transportation, because we're not a normal business. It's not a normal business, and it's because, just like what you said, the government regulations in our government. Nothing against our government. We have a wonderful government, but they're very involved in the transportation industry and very involved from a safety standpoint and from a regulation standpoint inside the marketplace. The biggest changes that have happened inside the industry over the last several decades have been all about the government passing different regulations on things. And so you see this. So trucking is a very specific type of business, though. It's not a general type of business, and there's specific type of deductions in the market that are specific for trucking. You talked about a few of those right at the end of the last question, but what are some of the specific tax deductions that a general CPA might miss when it comes to trucking and transportation?
Yeah, Brent, it's a really good question. And, the advice that we give anybody, whether you use ATBS or not, use somebody that knows trucking, because there are some very specific rules. I brought up per diem, and I'm just going to say it one more time. Most business meals and entertainment get deducted at 50% now that we're back into normal times after COVID. And so we see a lot of practitioners doing taxes that will take a 50% deduction. Per diem is typically about a $20,000 deduction for owner operators. And so if you're only getting a 50% deduction, you're only going to take $10,000 of that. But as an owner operator, specifically in the tax code, you can deduct 80%, which means it's more like a $17,000 deduction. So make sure your tax practitioner understands per diem. Some things that we do, and to be honest, we're the largest tax preparer for independent contractors in the country. We have a direct relationship with the IRS. We talk to them all the time. So we don't want to cheat. We don't want to take things that are illegal and going to get you in trouble, but we want to push the edge. We want to pay the lowest amount of taxes legally possible. So things like, I'm going to just throw out sunglasses, right? We all have sunglasses, but for a truck driver, that's a safety item. You have glare of the sun in your windshield, and so we can deduct sunglasses. We can deduct work boots. Something that may be seen as a little more controversial is a guard dog. If you have a dog in your truck, that dog, rightfully, if it's barking and doing things, it's protecting your truck, and so you can deduct the care and feeding of that dog. Another thing that sometimes is controversial is a home office deduction. People used to see that as a red flag for an audit with the IRS, but there's some very specific rules around home office, especially if you're running your own business, if you're using, truckstop.com for a load board, you may have a spouse at home that is doing paperwork and booking loads for you. You have to have some very specific things, like at home, you have to have a room specifically designated to be your office. It can't be a bedroom too. But home office deduction is a very good deduction. It can save you a few $100s in taxes. So those are just a few things that the general practitioner may not think about, you as a trucker, that are deductible. So make sure you get someone that understands truck taxes.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing how, when I travel around and even like during the holiday season, when I talk to my extended family, like I said, what exactly do you do, Brent? And I explained to them freight matching. I explained to them load boards in the spot market, and I kind of get that little kind of, okay, could you say that again sometimes? Because it's not near as simple as it may sound. And so really understanding what specifically is important to trucking is super important when it comes to the amount of revenue you're either going to pay or not pay at the end of the year. So thanks for pointing those things out. One of the things, Todd, that's really interesting is that because I go to a lot of trade shows and I work with a lot of associations, and so I get to see a lot of owner operators, and certainly Mid-America is one of my favorite places to go. I've been going there since 1998, and I get a lot of questions from owner operators, and they ask me, like, what's the best advice you could give me in running my business? And one of the things that I've seen, especially because I've been at Truckstop for the last decade, is that there's a little bit of a lack of trust between an owner operator and a brokerage company or a third-party logistics company. And so there's always sort of a little bit of a pushback on building any type of relationship. And so the advice that I give owner operators is build relationships. And I know that sounds old school, and that sounds like, maybe there's other things you might want to look at, but I don't think anything is more important as building a relationship, because it's vitally important when marketplaces become difficult. We're kind of coming from we're coming from a marketplace that's been so beneficial to owner operators the last 24 months and longer. It's moving into a market where it's very balanced now, or it doesn't necessarily favor the owner operator as much. So building a relationship with somebody might get you that load that you want at that rate that you want even faster and more frequently. So relationships in the marketplace are super important, because it gets you consistency, and consistency inside of getting the right freight in the lane that you want is the key to profitability, is one of the big keys to profitability that we find, because just hauling every single different lane and doing business with 35 or 40 different businesses is not as efficient. What I mean by efficient is it takes time, and the better relationship you have with somebody, the less time you have to work on all those things that keep you from getting the piece of freight you want. So it's always about building a relationship. What's some of the essential things that ATBS gives to owner operators as far as advice is concerned?
Boy, Brent, relationship, I love that, because that's what we said. You and I go back nearly 25 years, ups, downs, job changes, and all around. And
Yep.
if we didn't have a foundational relationship, right, we may have just forgot about each other. But from an ATBS perspective, one of my favorite quotes when I got into business early in my life, I heard somebody say, a business owner does not plan to fail, a business owner fails to plan.
Right.
So for us, it's all about the plan. So many people get into this business on a wing and a prayer. They saved a little bit of money, they made a down payment on a truck, and they got an internet Truckstop subscription, and next thing you know, they're in business, and they're doing okay. But then something goes haywire, and they don't know what to do. And so from our perspective, making a plan. So if I got 20 trucks, that might be a pretty sophisticated plan, because the person loaning me money to buy the trucks and trailers is going to require a fairly sophisticated plan. But if I'm a one truck driver, which is what most of our clients and most people that subscribe to truckstop.com are, many of them have never thought about a plan. And so at ATBS, it's really the first thing we do with our clients is we sit down and we make what's called a profit plan. And we call it a profit plan because if we called it a budget, nobody'd want to do it. It'd sound like a root canal, but a profit plan actually sounds pretty exciting, but it's really a budget. We go through and we do the numbers. We spend an hour together just talking about what's your business going to look like. And out of that comes some really incredible information. We can talk about fixed costs and variable costs and break even, which sound a little bit scary if I haven't taken any business classes or haven't really thought a lot about my business. But at ATBS, we're about helping people understand things like that. So just maybe a quick example, the average owner operator has fixed costs of $150 per day. And so if we go back 6-7 months ago when the market turned upside down, a lot of drivers just simply parked their truck because rates went down, fuel went up, and they didn't know what to do. So if I park my truck, I'm still accruing expenses of truck payments, insurance payments, $150 a day, and within, a few weeks, I'm in a deep, deep hole I can't dig out of. On the flip side, we can talk about variable costs. The average owner operator has variable costs of about $1 per mile. And that's really important news to know, because if I've met my break even, which means I've covered those fixed costs, now I can actually literally run my business as a trucker for $1 per mile. Nobody listening to this is going to take a rate for $1 per mile. They're going to be like, are you crazy? That's ridiculous. I would never haul for that. But in today's world, I can't just sit and wait for $3 a mile loads. It might make sense for me to take $1.50 a mile load. If I'm in a really bad market, rather than sit there for 2 days, I can take a few 100-mile length of haul for $1.50, because I'm going to cover my fuel, I'm going to cover my maintenance, I'm going to cover my variable costs, and I'm going to get into a lane that's going to pay me something higher. So again, if I just got into my truck and I started driving because I know how to drive a truck, but I never had a plan, I don't know how to adjust when the market changes. So that was a long-winded answer of saying have a plan, but you have to adjust that plan when the market changes too.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, a plan's everything. I know my life changed dramatically when I started planning things out, especially now that I'm married and got 5 kids. So planning is everything.
Yeah, so we've talked about such interesting information so far, Brent. And the thing that I love about what you do is you're on the road a lot. Maybe your 5 kids and your wife don't like that, but you get to see and talk to so many people. And I also know you know drivers personally, and you have personal conversations with them, and you understand them on a business level, on a personal level. And so, at ATBS, we see people make mistakes. I just mentioned one of the worst of the last 8 months was simply shutting down.
Right.
The world changed, fuel went up, and I just shut my truck down, and I didn't know what to do for 2 months. And a lot of people lost their business because of that. But I would love to hear from you, what you see with the folks that you talk to. What are those successful owner operators doing in their business, but also what mistakes are they making?
Yeah, man. Well, we got to deal with reality no matter what we do. I'll tell you the single biggest mistake that we see an owner operator making, and I can talk about our system and picking freight, but I want to go a little larger than that. The biggest mistake we see owner operators making in their business is they don't save for a rainy day. And what I mean by a rainy day is when a transmission goes out, when you have a major engine problem, when you have a wheel end problem, when you have an issue going on with the actual piece of machinery that makes you your money. And so not only do you have a cost against the repair on it, you have your method of making the money is not working. So to me, the biggest mistake is they don't really save for a rainy day. They don't have that 10 or 15,000, maybe even $20,000 that if something goes on that they can weather the storm. So that usually puts them out of business. I remember I even got to talk to the Senate Transportation Committee. They asked me this same question, and I said, this is what puts an owner operator, a small carrier, out of business. And their eyes just opened up. They were like, wow, so we really need to have great roads and great bridges so their trucks don't break down. I said, you've got it right on the money. So that's the biggest mistake. And some of the successful things I would say that we see owner operators do is they know the market conditions. They know what's going on. So they know why in, say, the fall of 2020, why were rates so high and why was freight so easy to get? Well, they knew exactly what was going on. It was because business had changed. People were working from their homes. They were having to buy things for their offices. The goods production in America went way up and goods purchasing went way up, and there was a lot more freight in the market. They knew what their opportunity was by looking at things like on Truckstop, we give a view of a piece of freight. You know exactly how much freight is moving in that market at that time and how many trucks are in that market. So you know your negotiation strength. So know the market conditions. We're going into a more difficult market right now. There's lots of winners in some areas. You got to know, do they favor you or not? You can look at the data on Truckstop, or you can look on other load boards. I'm sure they have some of this too, but we make sure we do that for the owner operators. The other thing is you got to prepare for the challenges that come out. Look, this marketplace is never in balance. It's just not. Rates are going to change. That's going to be one of the most important things. So understand where the challenges are coming from and understand how the economy is changing and how that's going to change, not necessarily today, but say 30 days from now, 60 days from now. And you can see a lot of that. We give a lot of that information on Truckstop, but you can also see that just by paying attention to the news that's going on out there. And so to me, that's the biggest thing you see. We see mistakes on not making sure they understand their cash flow and saving money for that rainy day. And then really the thing that the successful ones do is they know the market and where things are favorable and what parts of the market are favorable for them. So those are things we see. I'm sure you guys see some things too.
Yeah, gosh, there's so many different things that we see with drivers that are successful and not. And I have to say, you you nailed it on the head. Not having that fun to get yourself through the rainy day when I blow out 4 tires because I hit something in the road.
Right.
You know, we've already talked about just having that plan. Be ready to move forward. Be ready to change when the market changes. Adjust your numbers. You know, is your truck getting old because trucks have been so expensive? How am I going to ever buy a new truck because they cost so much, or a new used truck? You know, we see people working through numbers, not just making gut decisions based on what's going on.
Know your numbers, no doubt, man. But you just mentioned change, and so the market, Todd, is changing. Well, look, hey, like I said before, this market is never in balance. It's not designed to. The imbalance actually creates tremendous opportunity, and so we're in a changing market. And so, what are some of the well, I tell you what, I'll give a couple tips on some of the what we see in the market. So some of the things that we see for that. The tips that help the best owner operators succeed in a down or uncertain, and uncertain usually means you don't know which way it's going, and marketplace changes. And of course, in today's marketplace, you have high fuel, even though it's been coming down some. So understanding high fuel and in light of fuel, the thing that we see, and this is something that I just honestly recently became really aware of, is that the fuel surcharge index that a larger fleet, a medium or a larger fleet, negotiates into a contract is not something typically that the owner operator negotiates into their single transaction movement of freight for a brokerage company inside the spot market. So the thing that I would say one of the best tips is know the fuel surcharge amount that's out there. Presently, this past week, it's 60 cents. If you looked at it 5 weeks ago, it was 72 cents. That's 12 cents a difference. When you're getting, when you're charging by the mile, that's a tremendous amount of revenue that you need to be able to overcome the market conditions, which is the high fuel cost. So certainly knowing the fuel surcharge index is one of them. And then the other thing is looking at alternate markets. We see this, I see this a lot. I see a lot of owner operators that kind of just stay in their lane that they're comfortable or familiar with. But to give you an idea, let's just say you were hauling in the Northeast or anywhere else in the country. You're hauling in I'll say the Northeast. If you only haul in the Northeast and you didn't look in other marketplaces, that could be better for you, you would miss out on an opportunity. I'll give you an example. Like for instance, just last week, during this holiday season, the Southeast market, that's all kind of where I live in Alabama, the Southeast market transitioned tremendously. Just to give you an idea, loads in the Southeast were up 62% last week over the previous week, just the previous week. Rates, how about this? Rates were increased 31% in 1 week, in 7 days. So you could stay in the lanes that you're in and get 31% less freight revenue. So just understanding that, look at alternate markets. So that's really the big thing. And I'm sure you guys give great tips. Your owner operators as well. What are some of the tips you guys give?
Brent, I'm going to say 2 things that people may just end after this comment. They may just click end on this webinar because I've done this for 25 years and these are so popular, but sometimes we need to hear the hard words. I'm going to say work harder and slow down. And those are the last 2 things an owner operator wants to hear is work harder and slow down. I chose to be an owner operator so that I could do what I want and so that I could drive as fast as I want. But what I would say is the market changed drastically the last 8 months. And what happened is, you just mentioned it, the world changed. We got used to being really picky on what rate we would accept a haul for during the COVID years because, man, it was easy to get over $3 a mile pretty much. Now it's hard to find over $3 a mile. What that meant is drivers got choosy because they could generate the same revenue by doing a lot less. Who would not want to make more money by doing less? That's all of our dream, right? And I would say owner operators aren't unusual. Most of the working America did the same thing. Many people went home to work and they still work at home. And that means they're working a half a day on Friday instead of a full day Friday because, whatever reason, we're not as managed as we used to be. What I would say is we're just finishing up our end of the year data and the average owner operator ran 85,000 miles last year.
Right.
If you don't have anything to compare that to pre-COVID, just 2 years ago, the average owner operator was running 107,000 miles.
Wow.
So 20% less miles because there was so much great paying freight. So unfortunately, what that means is for me and my business, we're in a tougher time. We have to work harder. I got to go make more sales calls. I got to push my people to do more. So, what you said, Brent, look at alternative markets. You may have to drive north of I-40 in the winter and you may have to chain up. You may have to take some loads that you don't want to do, but that's what you got to do. The second thing, slow down. That is so unpopular because it's hard to drive 60 miles an hour. but it's a simple fact. The difference between 70 miles an hour and 60 miles an hour is $10,000 a year in today's fuel costs. There's dozens of ways to save money on fuel. Idling and slowing down are two of them. And so I just got to be smart. Like, it might make sense if I got a good paying load and I've got a tight delivery window to drive faster. But if I've got just a normal delivery window and I'm not looking at a great paying, load 2 days from now, maybe it makes sense. Try it. Try driving 60 miles an hour and see how much money you save over those couple of days. So those tips are what I would give anybody right now. Work harder and slow down. It's what we got to do for the next 12 months to make money.
Yeah, no doubt, man. That's unpopular, but it's wise. Wisdom always rules out.
Yeah, no doubt. So we already talked about, Brent, you travel a lot. You talk to a lot of people. I didn't even know you got to talk to the Senate, Finance Committee. What a scary thought that must have been. But what I really like is that you are exposed to so many different facets of our industry, from the shippers to everybody else. And so, I'm similar. I mean, I have the pleasure and the honor of speaking in front of a lot of different crowds. And so we have a perspective that not a lot of people get. And when I think about 2023, what I think about is we're in a changing time. We already talked about it a little bit, but it's going to be an uncertain time. It's not going to be consistent and steady like it was during the COVID years, where I got good freight and I can just choose to do what I want to do. In all likelihood, based on the news we hear, we're going to have a recession if we're not already in it. Things are going to get tougher before they get better. And so I guess what I would say when I think about 2023 is it's a year where I can't just go drive my truck and make money. I got to think about my business. I got to analyze the rates like you have talked about. I got to manage my fuel. I got to think about, is my truck getting old and costing me a ton in maintenance? So 2023, I think, just holds some uncertainty, which is always scary for a business owner. But what I know about the best business owners is they actually find a way to take advantage of a market. When a lot of other people are just terrified, smart business owners, they grow and succeed when things are challenging. So I think if 2023 is uncertain, which can be an opportunity. So Brent, tell me about, all the things that you think about for 2023.
Yeah, well, you've made some great points already, Todd, and I appreciate that. Yeah, it was a little scary talking to the Senate Transportation Committee, but what was interesting is they asked me the most questions. There were 5 other people on the panel, and they asked me more than 50% of the questions because they really wanted to talk about trucking and because they understand how important trucking is to the American economy and the American citizen and experience for our lifestyles. And so I think the thing I'd say about 2023 is to number one, and I'm a hopeful guy, is always keep hope in mind. And I say that because hope makes your brain start to think about what ways can I solve the problems that are coming at me, because I'm not going to give up. Giving up's not the option, because you chose this business and you chose this to chase your dreams because you love being owner-operators, love being on the road. They love driving their truck. One of the things that I love to do when I get to talk to them is to just let them tell me about their truck. Why do they love being out there? And it always fires me up about things. But to me, 2023, you mentioned recession. It's likely we are going to have a recession, but look, don't get too freaked out about that. Economies expand and contract. They all do. And we just went through the 2 biggest years we've ever had in our economy, and it's going to contract some. But the idea is, do you know it's coming at you? In other words, can you prepare for that? So if you're listening to this and you say, okay, well, if there's going to be a recession, how do I need to prepare? You're already thinking the right direction. So it's like, how do I need to prepare for that? So know what's coming at you, but also be thinking about, what does my customer need? So my customer, if I'm the owner operator in this marketplace, the easier customer is the 3PL or brokerage company, because they basically do all your work for you in dealing with a shipper, or a shipper if you choose to go after the shipper directly. What do my customers need? Well, my customers need, basically they need to create the greatest efficiency possible. The way to do that is to give them the information that they need. And typically it's, how can they have, first and foremost, visibility on my truck? And I know that's not popular either. You talked about slowing down. Well, visibility is not popular either, but they like to know where their stuff is. So if you give them access to that, it gives them more comfort in doing business with you. And the more comfort that they have doing business with you, the more likely they're going to pay the rate you would like to have. That's number one. So visibility is one. The number 2 thing is automate your communication. Anything that you have to do all the time, automate it, because that gives you more time to find the better freight. It gives you more time to figure out how to operate your truck better. But so automate your communication as much as possible, no matter what it is. Either either subscribe to a system like Truckstop. We automate a lot of things for the owner operator. You can also buy private software that allows you to automate the communication back to the broker or back to the shipper, that allows you to give them satisfaction being able to do business with you. So I think understanding how important visibility is, because look, and I hear this, you said I get to talk to a lot of people, boy, do I. And I love it, because I get to say I work for Truckstop, and I get to work for owner operators that have brokerage companies that are out there, and I get to talk about that. But really, it's the visibility. If you'll give them visibility and you'll give them automate the things that they have to do as well, they'll do more business with you. So that, I think that's in 2023 is going to be you'll see automation becoming more and more important as we move forward in 23 and 24 and 25. So that's what I see, Todd. So those are the big things. So what you mentioned a couple. Is there any other things in 2023 that you think are coming around the corner?
You know, I think you really hit on it, Brent. Our economy expands, it contracts, and so the thing that I know is people ask me all the time about, what about these self-driving trucks? You know, when are truck drivers going to be out of business? And there's always going to be freight to be moved, and there's always going to be drivers to drive those trucks that are moving that freight. And as we both said, don't be afraid. You're in business for yourself. Use that as an opportunity to go out and have a successful 2023. There's going to be freight to be moved. You just got to do it better and smarter than anybody else, and you can do that because you have in the past.
Well, that's a great point. About here's the thing that I always like to plant in the owner operator's mind is that you are needed by your customers. They only about 14% of all the shippers in America can move their own freight. That's why brokers are so successful. That's why trucking companies are so successful, is that they need your service. So understanding that you have a need in the market. Here's the other thing, is that the marketplace for moving freight is not predicted to go negative against its growth trend. And what I mean by that is there's always going to be more freight each year in the market. So there's always going to be more opportunity to move freight. So where there's freight, there's opportunity. So I'd say that as far as what's 2023 and the future is going to hold for this market. So there's a lot of different people that provide services in the marketplace. Truckstop's one of them. We're one load board. There's other ones as well. And we try to differentiate ourselves on providing the best for the owner operator. And there's other providers in the marketplace, but ATBS does things differently. What are some of the different things that ATBS offers to the owner operator than, say, a general CPA would?
You know, I'd say, Brent, probably the biggest thing people notice about and why they do business with us is the word CPA, Certified Public Accountant. Those people are trained to think a certain way, and in many ways, they're trained to think about, how do I get the work done, and how do I get people to get the work done so that it's easiest on me? That's just the nature of a CPA. And so most accounting firms ask their client to do the work for them. You add up your numbers, tell me what your revenue was, what your expenses were, and I'll do your tax return for you. And at ATBS, I would say that even though we've got our share of accountants and CPAs, we're truckers at heart. My brothers and I that founded our business and run it today, we grew up in the trucking industry. We didn't grow up CPAs, and so we think like truckers, not accountants.
Right.
So we do everything for you. We know that you got a mess to deal with every day. From, even though you got e-logs, you got to book your loads, you got to take care of all this paperwork, show delivery receipts, all this kind of stuff. The last thing you need to do is add up a bunch of numbers to give to your tax person. And so at ATBS, our goal is to make your life easy. We are as technologically advanced as you want to be. We have an ATBS app where you can simply take a picture of your, delivery receipt, bill of lading, receipt from Walmart, send it to us. We'll figure it out. So on the one hand, we're different because we think like truckers, not CPAs. I guess ultimately we have so much data because we do business with 20,000 drivers a year. We like to benchmark our clients, and so we can give you information that you can't get anywhere else. We can help you understand how you're doing in your business. Are the rates that you're running for compared to anybody else, are they good enough? I just said the average owner operator ran 85,000 miles last year. If I ran 90 or 95,000 miles, I'm doing above average. If I spent more than a certain amount of money on fuel, maybe I can adjust my habits. And so we take all that data and we actually help our clients, improve in their business every single day based on the benchmarks. And again, your traditional CPA is just going to take the numbers and do a tax return. They're not going to help you from a business perspective. It's just numbers and software to do accounting and tax, but to take all that information and actually help someone be successful, that's what we wake up to do at ATBS every day, is help these drivers to be more successful in their lives and their business, which is fun.
Yeah, it's fun. I appreciate you saying, you even mentioned automation, some of the things that you guys have done to make their lives better when you talked about automating the document management. And a document, is a receipt. So anything that automates that makes their life easier, because the faster they can do that, the faster they can get on to the next load, or take time off, either one, whatever that allows them to process their business. So you know what's funny, Todd, is I love to end presentations by always asking that question, which is, if you had to give someone advice about something, or what's the last piece of greatest advice you'd want to give an owner operator? I always like to ask that question, because it's like, okay, if I had to do it over again, what's the advice I would have wanted? So what I see on our end is that owner operators like the lifestyle that they live, and they like it, and they tend to just stay in certain very narrow areas on what they do. And what I would say is keep your mind open to how the market is going to continue to evolve. Trucking, yes, you're still doing the same thing. You're driving a truck to deliver a load. I realize that hadn't changed hardly at all. Maybe it's a little more comfortable to sit in the seats today than it was, say, 25 or 30 years ago. But looking at how the marketplace is going to continue to evolve forward, and my greatest advice I give to them is in present day terms, starting in 2023. It was going to start in about 2021 or in 2021, but COVID and pandemic hit, and that changed the dynamic a bunch. But now that the marketplace is coming back to normal, the advice I give to them is watch for automation. Study it, understand how your business needs to provide automation, needs to intersect with automation, so you can create the best efficiency for your truck. And that means every single piece of it: communication automation, the ability to find out what the market conditions automation. Automation should help you create a bit more profitable business, which allows you to chase your dream more, which is to be a successful owner operator. So that's what I say. What's that big piece of advice that ATBS and Todd gives to owner operators?
Brent, I think that's such good advice, and I think it's also scary advice, because automation sounds like it might cost me thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, but I can simply take my phone today and I can automate my business, right? There's so much information that companies like Truckstop.com have, the benchmark data ATBS can provide on how your business is running. And so not only automate, but most of our clients don't have college degrees. They drive a truck because their uncle did or their brother did, and it's their job of choice. They did not want to sit behind a computer and look at spreadsheets. But the world of information today is just made it necessary, but also opportunistic, that I can take all that information and I can use it to my advantage. And so I guess I'll go a little more altruistic. I agree 100% with your automation, but what I would say is, I've been at accounting and tax for 25 years, and it may sound like the most boring job on the face of the earth to go in and do an accounting and tax work every day. But what gets me and every person at our company excited is that we know every day we make a difference in someone's life. You became a business owner, and you own your own business for a reason, because you don't want to be a ward of the company. You don't want someone telling you what to do every day. You are the American dream as an entrepreneur. And so my piece of advice is to actually realize that you did that, not just because I paid off my truck in a lease purchase program, or I was in a good economy, so I went and got my own authority. You became a business owner because you want to make your own decisions. God gave us each, different abilities, different intelligence, different work ethics. But each one of you that own your own truck, take your God-given ability to be successful in your life. And my advice is to not see every day in an economy like now, where it's a challenge, see it as an opportunity. If I think of a huge truck line that has 10,000 trucks, for them to adapt to the market last year was really difficult. When fuel goes up, they have to set down every one of those 10,000 trucks. They have to set down the speed governor to slow those trucks down. As an owner operator, you can make 3 different decisions this afternoon that change your life to be more successful. And so, my piece of advice is to see yourselves for what you are. You're the American dream. You're a business owner. You're someone who can go out and make your life every day. And that is so exciting and fun. It's not a negative. It's not, gosh, I'm in a bad market. I wish I never would have bought this truck. Gosh, I'm in a bad market. There's a lot of other people that are going to be challenged. How can I be successful in this market? So, wake up and be inspired that you are living the American dream, because not that many people get to do that. You're doing it. And you didn't even go to college to get a degree to do it. You just went out and made it happen. So, take that and work hard and be smart and go make money, man. You guys are the ones and gals are the ones that make America run. You really are.
Wow, man. What a great way to close us out, man. It's that's the thing that gets me going too. It's one reason why I've been in this market for as long as I have, because I truly love owner operators, and I know that you and ATBS do too. So thank you so much today for giving this wise counsel. As my dad says, man, you got to use your resources and go seek counsel on things, because then that can help you make the best decisions. And you've given great counsel today, Todd. So thank you so much for being willing to give that information to the owner operator to help them to succeed. And so what are the great ways they can get in touch with ATBS?
Hey, Brent, I'm going to wrap up by saying thank you for the opportunity. ATBS loves being a platinum partner with Truckstop.com. Together, you and I as individuals and the companies that we work for through time, we've just always had the dream of helping drivers be better. And so anybody can get a hold of us. We have great resources. You don't have to be a customer. You can go to atbs.com and you can Google the stuff we've talked about, tax law changes, per diem. We've got endless resources out there that you can read and learn. But if you want to talk to us, if you need help, if you think your current CPA is not doing a great job for you, just give us a call at 866-920-2827. Reach out to us. We are technology enabled, but we're a people company. We like to talk on the phone to our clients. And so give us a call. You don't have to just shoot us a message. Call us. We want to talk to you.
Well, thanks, Todd, and thanks to ATBS for all you do to help the market, and appreciate you listening along. If we can ever help you with anything else, you know where to find us as well. We're at truckstop.com, have been for the last 27 years. Thank you and have a great day.